The Anti-Cruelty Society presents Paw and Order. Join us as we follow a humane investigator to uncover the story of Bogart and his journey through the shelter. Our story begins on December 10, 2010, when the Anti-Cruelty Society's Humane Investigations Department received an anonymous complaint stating there was a dog left outside in the cold that was just skin and bones. Later that day, a humane investigator went out to the property to see if the allegations were true. When they arrived, they observed a tan-colored mixed Shar-Pei that was inside a run-down doghouse in the backyard. That dog's name was Bogart. Take a look at this picture the investigator took as evidence. What do you notice about it? The investigator observed that there were no human footprints on the snow around Bogart's doghouse. This may not seem like much at first, but it was a big clue that his owner hadn't been coming to check on him or give him food or water. In Illinois, we have a law called the Humane Care for Animals Act. In its section outlining pet owners' responsibilities, it states that you must provide the animals in your care with adequate shelter and protection from the weather. Let's take a look at the following shelters. Do they provide adequate protection from the weather? Does this look like an effective shelter? It's hard to see them all because they're so tightly huddled together, but there are 3 dogs in there. Some things that you may have noticed are the drafty openings and unstable supports under the frame. In fact, this isn't a dog shelter at all. It's the windowless top of a car propped up by cinder blocks, and isn't providing these dogs any protection from the cold outdoors. What do you notice about this shelter? You may have seen the trash littered on the ground, which can be harmful to this dog if he eats it. But did you also see that the ground is muddy? This is not only uncomfortable for the dog, but also means that his shelter, the space under the porch, isn't protecting him from the rain or the wind. I want to draw your attention to the fact that this dog is tethered to the porch. A tether is a leash or lead that's secured in such a way so as to prevent an animal's roaming. Some important things to note about Illinois laws regarding tethers are that it's unlawful to use them if the tether is shorter than 10 feet long, if the dog has a medical condition that's made worse by being tethered, if the tether enables the dog to become tangled with other tethered dogs, if the tether exceeds 1/8 of the dog's body mass or is made from a tow or log chain, if the tether is attached to the dog on a pinch, prong, or choke collar, if the dog is tethered in such a way that they're able to reach other people's property, public walkways, or roads. It's also important to note that many animals who are tethered tend to be outside for long periods of time and may be denied socialization, adequate shelter, or even veterinary care. Additionally, research on dog behavior suggests that tethered dogs are more likely to demonstrate increased territorial and aggressive behaviors. Alright, this one's a bit tricky. Does this shelter provide adequate protection from the weather? If you answered yes, then you're correct. The shelter is sturdy, solid, and waterproof. However, this poor dog's tether is so badly tangled around that pole that he can't even reach it. That's one of the risks of tethering, especially when using a chain. Because he's unsupervised, who knows what would have happened if our investigator hadn't showed up? When looking at situations like this one, it's valuable to consider, is this the fault of the dog or the owner? Here's another tricky one, but remember the question. Does the shelter provide adequate protection from the weather? It may look funny, but this is a great shelter, provided the dog is small, perhaps about the size of a chicken. In fact, this is a repurposed chicken coop. The diagonal roof prevents water from pooling up and deteriorating the wood, and the flat side facing the fence acts as a windbreaker if the dog wants some fresh air. The owner even insulated it with hay inside and out. While I prefer my dogs to snuggle with me at home on the sofa, This shelter definitely follows the law. Okay, last one. What do you think? Don't worry, it's not another trick question. This is a great shelter. It's roomy, sturdy, and the flap on the front door blocks unwanted breeze without being too tight to block the entrance. Additionally, you can't see it easily, but the roof is on a hinge so the owner can open the top and clean out the bedding or any messes. The only thing that's really a problem is that the shingles are on backwards. Whoops! But that can be fixed pretty easily. Okay, let's get back to Bogart. After taking a look at his doghouse, the humane investigator took a look at the dog. What do you think they saw? Poor Bogart was severely emaciated, meaning he was dangerously underweight, and you could see all of his ribs and hip bones clearly. The humane investigator didn't see any food, water, or even bedding inside the doghouse. All they saw was a bowl that was filled with snow and ice. The investigator was able to make contact with the dog's owner and explain the severity of his situation. Bogart's owner stated that they fed the dog, but wasn't willing to show any evidence of food to the investigator. Citing a violation of the Humane Care for Animals Act, Bogart was impounded and removed from the owner's yard. I want to pause Bogart's story again to talk about what a dog needs versus what the law says an owner must provide. Think about the care you give to your own pet, or how you would care for a pet if you had one. If you're having trouble thinking about what they would need, think about what you need. Can any of this apply to an animal? Things like food, water, and shelter seem obvious, but is that all you need to be happy? What about toys, affection, grooming, and so on? There are many things we can do to meet the needs of our pets, but let's take a peek at what the law says. In Section 3 of the Illinois Humane Care for Animals Act, you'll find the owner's duties. It states that each owner shall provide for each of his or her animals a sufficient quantity of good quality, wholesome food and water, adequate shelter and protection from the weather, veterinary care when needed to prevent suffering, and humane care and treatment. I want to point out that the wording of this section, while it may seem clear when you read it, is actually pretty vague. Subjective words like wholesome, adequate, or sufficient leave the law open to interpretation. This can become an obstacle when trying to prove a violation of the Humane Care for Animals Act in court. Keep in mind, too, that this is merely the minimum standard of care that an owner must provide under the law. The things mentioned previously, like toys, grooming, or treats, are still necessary to help your pet thrive. For example, toys safely help with cats and dogs' instinct to hunt or chew, treats help with training, and grooming is necessary to keep long-haired cats and dogs healthy, but neither are explicitly outlined in the law. Okay, let's get back to Bogart. When he arrived at the Anti-Cruelty Society, he weighed only 36 pounds. A dog his size should weigh at least 60 pounds. He came in nearly half the size that he should have been. One of the tools that a humane investigator or someone in the veterinary field uses is a body condition system. It contains a scale from 1 to 9 defining different body condition scores. A body condition score is a number that the investigator will write in his or her notes to describe how under or overweight an animal is. A score of 4 or 5 is ideal, with 1 to 3 being underweight and 6 to 9 being overweight. Let's pause Bogart's story again to consider the body condition system. What body condition scores would you assign to the following dogs? Remember, 1 is the most underweight and 9 is the most overweight, with 4 or 5 being ideal. Here's our first dog. What body condition score would you assign to him? It's hard to tell from this perspective, and because he's so fluffy, but I would assign him a score around a 2. One clue is the way that his legs are caving in on his stomach. He doesn't have any mass to hold them up and allow him to sit normally. He's very underweight. Okay, on to our second dog. What body condition score would you assign to her? Again, I'd probably put her around a 2, since you can see her spine, ribs, and hip bones so clearly. An important thing to consider in this situation are factors like age, breed, or medical condition that may prevent animals from gaining or keeping on weight. Some breeds, like this Doberman Pinscher, may have trouble keeping on weight as they become seniors, regardless of how much food they're provided. On to our third example. What body condition score would you assign to this guy? He looks pretty healthy to me, so I'd probably put him around a 5. Oh, but take a look at his yard. Is there anything else in this photo that's worth noting? This dog has no shelter, and the wet sidewalk indicates that it's been raining. Additionally, his tether is allowing him access to the public sidewalk, which can be dangerous to passers-by. Even though he appears well fed, this scenario looks like it may be a violation of the Humane Care for Animals Act. Here's our last example. What body condition score would you assign to this little dog? It may look funny, but this poor pooch is obese, or dangerously overweight. He can barely even stand. I would definitely put him around a 9. Being overweight can be just as unhealthy as being underweight. Similar to humans, dogs like this are more likely to develop medical conditions like diabetes, heart problems, and joint problems. This dog became obese when his owner fed him nothing but table scraps and fatty dog treats. They thought they were being nice to their pet, but they were literally killing him with kindness. You can improve the health of a dog like this one with a well-portioned diet and consistent exercise. Okay, now back to Bogart. Recalling what you just learned about the body condition system, what score would you give him? I would say somewhere around a 2, since you can clearly see his spine, ribs, and hip bones. Similar to the first and second dogs we rated, he's dangerously underweight. After Bogart arrived at the Anti-Cruelty Society, the veterinarians gave him a blood test. They determined that he was healthy and didn't have any underlying medical issues that would have led to his poor physical condition. He simply wasn't getting enough food. While at the shelter, Bogart had a very healthy appetite. In fact, he gained over 8 pounds in just 2 weeks, with only 4 simple meals per day. At the Anti-Cruelty Society, we often say that we're more than a shelter. In addition to helping animals find their forever homes through our adoption program, we also provide many other programs and services, including affordable spay-or-neuter surgeries, dog training classes, and humane investigation in Chicago. Additionally, we offer educational opportunities to people of all ages, offer pet first aid classes, a pet loss support group, and have a free behavior helpline. Our SAFE program, which stands for Short-Term Accommodations for Emergencies, is a temporary pet boarding program for people displaced from their homes due to an unforeseen circumstance. By helping the pets of Chicago and the people who love them, we're able to continue our mission of building a community of caring by helping pets and educating people. Let's get back to Bogart's story. Now that he's made it to the society, his journey is over, right? Of course not. Would you like to find out what happened to him? It's no surprise. Bogart's story has a happy ending. After his recovery, Bogart was adopted on January 12, 2011, just about a month after he got to the shelter. Here's a picture of him with his new owner and a brother. That's not all. Bogart has a whole family now to love and cherish him for the rest of his life. His story is only one of many animals that have had their lives saved by someone advocating for their well-being. This just shows how much a little kindness and care can go towards making a huge impact. In this lesson, we learned that there are laws that protect our pets, that animals have needs just like we do, that having a pet is a huge responsibility that takes a lot of work, and that the Anti-Cruelty Society has many programs and services to help animals and animal lovers all across Chicago. I hope you enjoyed BOGART'S story. If you have any questions or wish to find out more about the many ways you can make a difference in the lives of animals, visit anticruelty.org or call us at 312-644-8338. We hope to see you soon.